Oh, welcome back to another episode of On the Spot Sports. I'm Jack, and today's episode we are joined by a very special guest, current play-by-play announcer for the Big Ten Plus, the Worcester Bulls hockey, and he does everything else that you can in the broadcasting world with play-by-play. It seems like so. I'm really excited to get Keith Kokinda on, so it's gonna be a good time. We're gonna talk hockey, talk Worcester Bulls, talk your origin story to get into play-by-play announcing, and where that journey has taken you. So I'm excited to get you on, Keith. So welcome to the show, Keith Kokinda.
Thank you very much, Jack. Happy to be on here. Been a great season calling Worcester Bulls games on YouTube this season. It's been a fun season. Didn't start out that well, but it's gotten a lot better since the calendar turned to 2026, and now got the playoffs coming up in Buffalo. Going to be trucking up to Buffalo this weekend to take on the Tempest Saturday night, and then Sunday afternoon. If you're watching, just look up Buffalo Tempest on YouTube, and you'll be able to watch the games live there.
Yeah, there you go. Gotta get the promo going for the Worcester Bulls and to
Right.
play. Yeah, exactly like you said, it's playoff time, and I've enjoyed listening back to the videos and of on YouTube and the games and hearing you play or call the game. So it's been a blast listening to you. But like how has this season been for you as a play-by-play announcer and just seeing how everything has gone?
Yes. Yeah, it's been everything I was really hoping for. It was my first chance to do minor pro hockey, and my experience with Big Ten Plus actually got me there. So it's been, it's a terrific facility. The team's been wonderful. The team really came together quickly. There were some struggles early on. The fan support has been tremendous. Cody Lang has done a very good job running the team, both from a player's perspective as well as a business perspective. We've done very, very well because I've seen many minor pro teams in other sports not do things very well, and not just from a financial standpoint, but just from a doing things right standpoint. These Cody especially has done a great job of doing things the right way, as have all the other teams in the league. They've been very cooperative in helping me out when I've got games, getting answering messages I sent, whether they be by email or through social media. They've been very good about getting back to me. It makes my job a whole lot easier when I have that kind of cooperation, but especially with the Bulls. Everybody's been terrific because we have our own Shooting the Bull podcast available on Spotify as well as our YouTube channel. Had a bunch of the players on there. You've been on there twice, as a matter of fact,
Yeah.
and most of the team have been on there at least once. We'll have at least one more episode, maybe two, hopefully more, depending on how you guys progress in the playoffs. But yeah, it's been pretty much everything I've hoped for a first season doing minor pro hockey, and hopefully things will continue to go forward. And who knows who might notice somewhere down the line. And we do have not just me, but the players as well. 'Cause we do have the affiliation in the FPHL with the Twin City Thunderbirds on South Carolina, and we have one player, Jack Melanson, go down there already. Hopefully, there'll be some other opportunities going forward for everybody concerned.
Yeah, and like you said, like doing every like Cody, especially with it with management, has done everything right, and it proves like with the play that we've had and like everything behind the scenes, like you said, like so we struggled a bit when we started out, and since 2026 has turned or the page has turned to 2026, like we've been on a roll and moved from I'm pretty sure dead last in the league into probably fourth or fifth within the league's teams within the team. So it's going pretty good so far, and now we're heading into playoffs, like you said. So it's gonna be an exciting time.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
certainly is. The attitude of the team, especially in those first 2 months, was always good, even when you were struggling. I think that was a big reason why the team chemistry to me has always been very, very good. And I think that's been a big difference in getting through that. Bill Fitch, God rest the soul of the dumb Irishman, the original coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, once said, "War is hell, but expansion is worse."
yeah,
While I was exaggerating a bit, expansion is never easy for a first year team. especially because you got a lot of guys don't know each other, haven't played together. With a few exceptions, of course, you got the four sets of brothers on the team. That helped a little bit too. But really, you guys came together well, and not just on the ice, but off the ice as well. And that I think has made a big difference. You were able to stay with it, stay the course, and eventually, as you said, turn things around once we got into January. Of course, the scheduling didn't do you guys any favors either, and of course that was beyond your control. We had a couple of games canceled due to the bad weather in both December and January. Plus, had a team close up shop and reopen Toledo with a complete rebrand, and then Iron City down in Pittsburgh folded up entirely, and that really was a spanner in the works for you guys because as you were
Yeah,
playing, you already played them twice. You were going to play them four more times over the following 6 weeks, which would have been a great chance
yeah,
for you to get some more points because they hadn't been playing very well. You're being pretty comprehensively. The two games down in Pittsburgh both as 10-7 and 3-1. So, but you guys have done a very good job of getting through all that and the irregularity of the schedule because that's not easy. The athletes,
no,
I've been around enough athletes. I know you're creatures of habit and creatures of routine. And when that routine is disrupted, it can make a difference sometimes. But you guys really stayed the course well with that. And as you said, you're peaking at the right time going into a series with Buffalo, who you've played pretty well this season. They're the current Governor's Cup holders. So I'm looking forward to a fun series. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss game one live on Saturday
oh,
because I'm going to be otherwise busy. As he mentioned, I do work for Big Ten Plus, and also part of that relationship, they work with ESPN Plus, ESPN having the exclusive rights to all the NCAA tournaments outside of men's basketball, of course. And Columbus will be hosting one of the regionals for the NCAA women's hockey tournament this weekend, starting tomorrow night, March 12th, when Yale takes on Minnesota Duluth. Winner of that gets Ohio State on Saturday in the regional final for a place in the Frozen Four. I'll be doing that game Saturday night from 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus, so that's why I won't be able to watch that game live in Buffalo. But I'll try to keep an eye on my Instagram account with the Worcester Bulls hockey account because I know Cody and Taylor are pretty good at putting up
yeah.
updates as the game progresses. So I'll be kind of sneaky peeks at that when I get the opportunity during that while I'm working on that game at Ohio State Saturday night.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, you got to call that game and also check in with our game. So it's the best of both
Right.
worlds. You
Yes.
could still pay attention to both,
Mhm.
but like you said, like with Big Ten, like I want to go into like how you got into like the play-by-play and broadcasting, like what's your origin story behind that, and just
Yeah.
really fall in love with play-by-play.
Well, it started when I was a kid. I was a big sports fan as a kid, but in terms of athletic ability, I was like 90% of us, average, middle of the pack. Nothing great, nothing terrible, but I had certain gifts. I could always get up in front of an audience. I was able to speak off the top of my head. I could memorize things quickly, and I would watch games and sometimes try to mimic guys I would hear whether it be on radio or television, and then in grade school, I was laid up with a screwed up knee thanks to playing touch football. And
Ouch.
my school, we always had for a few years in my school, there were these epic recess kickball games between the fifth grades and the sixth graders. So I'm standing out to the side and just kind of naturally started doing play by play on it, which the other kids loved because I was the only one who knew what the score was. If you get kids in grade 5 and 6, they're going to have arguments when they're playing anything.
Yeah.
So this way, that kind of solved that problem. But it really kind of
One team wins, one
mushroomed
team
from
loses.
there. Right, but but it kind of mushroomed from there. I studied had a few communications courses and English courses I was able to take in middle school and high school. Went to what is now the Ohio Media School. They have campuses in Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. It was called Ohio Center for Broadcasting back then. But I went there, uh, and just for the fact that back in those days, a little bit more formal education was a good thing, especially at a technical school. Back in those days, if you went to a university and you were trying to get into radio and TV, there were many cases where people who were doing that, students who were doing that, couldn't necessarily get on a campus radio station right away. They sometimes had to wait by some time in that. It's not like that anymore. Ohio State has they have the Scarlet and Gray Sports Radio, which also kind of overlaps with Big Ten Plus. A lot of people, a lot of the students are on both of them. So I started. I got my first professional gig actually doing indoor soccer in my early 20s up in Canton. Was doing that for a few years, then moved to Columbus and got into doing high school football as well as other high school sports. Did that for several years, both on radio as well as TV, the old Time Warner Cable Sports Channel back in the day in the early 2000s before the merger that created Spectrum. And from there, I was lucky to get contacted by someone from Big Ten Plus at Ohio State. They needed somebody they were looking for somebody who knew how to do soccer games, and I had plenty of experience. I worked for several minor pro teams down in Cincinnati as well as Columbus as well. And luckily for me, the one of the assistant coaches, now the associate head coach of the women's team, he knew me from working with teams in Cincinnati. So he was able to let them know, hey, yeah, he knows what he's doing. In fact, he's told me more than twice that if it were up to him, I would be doing all the games for them, not Big Ten Plus and Big Ten Network, but he doesn't have that kind of authority as a coach, obviously. So I've been with them ever since, with an interruption in 2020. You can probably guess why.
Yeah.
But also since then, I've joined OH Report, which is a online based company in Mid Ohio, based in Mansfield, covering high school, all kinds of high school sports throughout Mid Ohio. They have a Facebook Live page as well as several YouTube channels where they show live high school sports as well. They brought me on in bits and pieces, but hopefully going to be a little more regular starting next season, especially since they are expanding. And that's where I am now, still trying to make that one big break. And again, as I mentioned before, that was one of the big reasons why I was anxious to get on with the Bulls and minor pro hockey. In fact, my Big Ten Plus experience helped a little bit. Cody Lang's brother had heard me doing an Ohio State women's hockey game on Big Ten Plus, and also oddly enough, Cody had gone to high school up in Bowling Green with the older sister of Hannah Williford, who I work with quite frequently on Big Ten Plus. In fact, when I posted a picture back in the fall of the two of us, he immediately recognized her and sent me a message saying, "What are you doing there with Hannah Williford?" I was like, "I work with her. How do you know her?" Of course, I had to go back to Hannah and tell her about it. Say, "Hey, you've been holding out on me. You didn't tell me you have an older sister, but go into my Instagram account, scroll back to December, you'll see a few of those pictures there." So I guess that's the story in a somewhat shortened version, obviously spread out over a lot of years, but it's something I'm still trying to pursue as a full-time career, and again, hoping that something here, with the Bulls will eventually lead to something bigger and better. Again, that was one of the big reasons why I was eager to get on with this team.
Yeah, that's an awesome story to share and just get the origin story and like you said, like getting a big break, your first time with and getting it in indoor soccer. Like that must have been a huge learning experience and learning curve just to get
Mhm.
into the professional worlds. Like what was that like
Yeah,
just getting your
it
first gig
was
there?
yeah. Yeah, it was weird. 'Cause the funny thing was the way it happened was there was a team in that league. It was in Chicago, and a couple of friends of mine were basically running it on behalf of the league, but nobody knew that at the time. They were trying to bring me on to do the games, but they were having the darndest time trying to find a broadcast outlet in the Chicagoland area.
Yeah.
And I actually traveled to see the team's first two weekends, both on the road, and they were still working on that. The third week of the season, they came to Canton for a game, and I had talked to Canton's general manager previously about working for them. He was pretty non-committal, but I'm literally going out the door of my apartment to go to Canton to meet with my friends and at the game. And that general manager calls me, late Andy Smiles, calls me up. He says, "Listen, I need somebody to do the game tonight on a local TV, local access cable TV broadcast. Can you do it?" I said, "Well, yeah, I'm already on my way." So I did that. It turned out that the guys who had done the games the last couple of years were not terribly reliable, and he was looking for a reason to get rid of them, and I turned out to be the reason. When after doing the first game, he said, "The job's yours if you want it." And I said, "Yes, I want it." And that was the starting point. And the funniest part of that was, yeah, this is in Canton, and all my friends were saying to me basically the same thing, saying, "You got your first job with a professional team. How cool is that? Normally, you have to start out doing high school stuff." And I said, "No, no, you don't understand. This is Canton, okay? High school sports are the top of the ladder, especially high school football. Okay, I am starting at the bottom of this ladder. In fact, we would open in late October usually. We would always have to play the first weekend of the last weekend in October on the road because that was always the weekend of the McKinley-Massillon football game, which is a huge, huge deal in Stark County. If you know anything about high school football in Ohio, those who are in Ohio understand that immediately. So we knew there would be nobody at our games. Probably wouldn't have a TV crew there. That's how much attention this game gets. It's a rivalry goes back to the earliest days of professional football in the first decade, a couple of decades of the 20th century. So it was a great first experience, even though the team was not very good, except for someone who was as young as I was to get going that early was a great experience. Although wasn't quite like Al Michaels. Al Michaels was when he was 20, he was already doing AAA baseball, and
Wow.
ended up with the Reds a couple of years later. After that, he was only 25 years old, and then when he left, that was when Marty Brenneman succeeded him. So to get started that young the experience was great, but also it was a great break for me to be able to start that soon and get some needed first time experience because
Yeah. Yeah.
that's one of the big things. It's one of the
Yeah.
things that's changed a lot since then. People can really they can create their own YouTube channels, their own Facebook pages, the social media. What you're doing, people don't necessarily have to go to a school right now. They can, as I said, the Ohio Media School still exists, but people can do this with a little bit of tech savvy, can do this stuff on their own and get that practical experience. It wasn't like that when I was getting started.
Yeah, it's all about experience and just gaining that experience and like you said, creating YouTube channels, Facebook, and just sitting on a phone or a computer and just calling games. I've seen that happen with a lot of people that I know that get into play the broadcasting and play-by-play scheme is they just call games by themselves,
Hmm.
and it's just gaining experience while you're doing it, and you learn on the go. So it's that's a huge learning aspect just
Yeah.
to gain that experience.
Yeah. And that's part of what Big Ten Plus is about. It is unique compared to the other conferences. The other conferences, the ACC, the SEC, and the Big East, they have their own digital networks and online networks that are done by subscription, but those are still full-fledged ESPN productions. They're still
Yeah.
full-fledged professionals. Big Ten Plus is mostly students. All the production people are students. The program is called Student U. It's part of Big Ten Network's program to get these people practical experience while they're still in school. And probably about 70 to 80% of the talent people are also students, but they leave the opening for professionals such as myself. And we get to serve as kind of informal instructors, de facto mentors for these people. And it's part of the program and it's something that, that's encouraged that they've encouraged us to do. And I've enjoyed that part because I know when I was starting out, there were several people in the professional people, a lot more experienced than me, who really treated me well. They treated me as equals. JP Dellacamera, who was with ESPN and Fox Sports for a long time, doing mostly professional soccer. He did MLS on both ESPN and Fox for several years. Terrific guy, class actor, one of the best broadcasters there are. The only broadcaster in the National Soccer Hall of Fame, by the way. And
Oh,
the saying at Ohio State that comes from Ralph Waldo Emerson is "pay it forward," and that's what I see doing at Big Ten Plus. Not only getting that exposure and getting a chance to do more games, but also helping these kids out. And some of them are already starting to move on to bigger and better things. Tyler Danberg, who I worked with for a few seasons on Big Ten Plus, he's now moved up to doing the play-by-play for Ohio State women's basketball on the Fan 97.1. He's also the sideline reporter for the football broadcasts. And I tell people I'd like to say I taught him everything he knows, but he knew a lot to start with. I mean, I knew his dad by reputation. His dad worked for the Indians for several years, so I knew right away who he was. And but his knowledge, not just sports, but all kinds of cultural stuff is good too. I had one game I'm doing, a soccer game I'm doing with him, and Ohio State's women's team. They had twin sisters, Jaden and Jacinda Bonham, and I had one of them had a chance to do with some space, and I said, and Jaden Bonham with a chance to ramble on up the center of the park. He immediately jumped all over and said, "Oh yeah, the Bonzo Bonham Led Zeppelin reference, nicely done." He knew right away. A young kid, 22 years old, and he knows his Led Zeppelin. That was impressive. But there's been a lot of great people I've been working with at Big Ten Plus, the students especially. It's a great experience for me too, because as I said, you know, it's about helping these kids who have aspirations just like I've had for such a long time and trying to treat them well, just as I was treated well when I was their age.
Yeah, like what's it like being like a mentor, like you said, for those kids, and just like you're still calling all the games, getting that experience as well for yourself, but you're also teaching these kids like the ropes and what to expect when you go up.
Yeah, it's something I enjoy, and we've had not. I know there have been some people who didn't necessarily take to that role as well as maybe they would Big Ten Plus would have liked, but I've enjoyed it a lot. As I said, it's kind of a youthful feeling being just saying these kids, "Hey, I'm your equal here today. Okay, don't give me this Mister stuff," because a few of them have. It's like, no, no, I'm Keith. We're equals. We're partners. There's no distinction here because as I said, I was treated the same way by a lot of people, and this is my way of showing my appreciation for that. But I enjoy it because there's certain things that I was taught and I learned about doing a broadcast um, that yeah, I like to pass on because I hear a lot of professionals do things that I don't necessarily like. One of the things I don't like is when people read graphics. Like I think the
Yeah.
people are smart watching are smart to read the graphic. I don't need to read it to them. And also the one thing and but and adjustments I've had to make, like they got score bugs now. I don't get the scores often and things like that. But just little subtle things to be able to teach them. I've enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, I think it's a to me. I think it helps me too because it reminds me of certain things I need to remember to do or remember not to do. And because Tim Brando over at Fox Sports does college football and basketball for them said getting the reps is important. And
Yeah.
to me, learning and remembering things I shouldn't do is part of that growth and part of that process to be always look to try to improve. So I see that as helping these kids, but also helping myself, not to be selfish necessarily, but it's a two-way street is the way I see it. And again, I take a lot of pleasure in doing that for these kids I work with on Big Ten Plus.
Yeah, and just like anything else, reps are important. You just going rep after rep and gain that experience. Like what goes into like the pregame prep for like either a Worcester Bulls hockey game, a basketball, college hockey game. Like what goes into prep to prepare calling the game?
Well, with the Worcester Bulls, fortunately, the website's usually pretty good at having updated information and stats, but I also make sure to contact other teams and make sure I've got an updated roster because at this level, there's roster changes. They come up a lot for various reasons, making sure, especially making sure who's going to be making a trip necessarily. So be able to see this stuff online. And also in the APHL, all the teams do have a YouTube channel where they show the game. So that's good for me too, because I can go in and see things and watch the game. I can see like who the defense pairings are, who the line combinations are, which helps me out a lot to know what to expect with with college teams. Obviously, they've got a lot of stuff on their websites in terms of player bios, rosters, stats, all kinds of things like that. One thing that's been prevalent I've seen over the last maybe 10 years or so and with college teams is on roster pages, either on the roster page or on the player's bio page, there'll be an audio file of that player saying his or her name, which is very helpful because I do both soccer teams at Ohio State. I do both soccer teams, both hockey teams, both volleyball teams. both lacrosse teams, baseball and softball. So especially soccer, hockey, and volleyball, a lot. There's a lot. There are a number of people from Europe and Asia and Africa who are playing there. So it's helpful to have that information. But sports information directors will oftentimes, when they have a printed roster at a game, they'll have a pronunciation guide on there as well. So that's something, I get, unfortunately, I can look at that a couple days in advance and do want with that in mind. All the SID people who at Ohio State are always a big help to me in terms of getting ready. Amelia Fritzy, who I'll see Saturday night. She does SID work for the women's hockey team as well as the baseball team. Uh, Gary, who does the women's basketball as well as the women's soccer team, he helps me out a lot as well. And these are these are all very helpful in terms of finding out information. And even high schools, especially in Ohio, they're using Max Preps a lot more to put up stats. So be having this online access to me is so much easier now than it was, say, 15 years ago, because there's more information out there. Obviously, as we all know, there's a lot more interest in high school sports, especially at these higher levels. We got all these kids going to play Division I football, these recruiting sites and everything else. They want that information, and a lot of schools are providing that. So it's seeing, whether it be the team sites or Max Preps or anything like that is a big help with doing the pregame preparation. It's just a lot easier to do now than it was when I was starting.
Yeah, makes everything a lot more easier, a lot more fluid, and just like you said, you're watching YouTube, just like you learned from the latest podcast that I did with you guys. That
Yeah.
I've watched the games probably three, four times over just to make sure I have everything. Like you're doing the same thing, like the prep's pretty much the same, and like gotta love it and gotta fall in love with it.
Oh yeah, it's something I've always loved doing and hopefully continue for the next 20, 25 years or so. And hopefully, and not to say I want to leave you guys behind necessarily because I don't, but hopefully on to some bigger and better things somewhere down the line. And that's something, whether it be with Big Ten Plus or with the Worcester Bulls, trying to reach that next level. It's just the same thing as what the players are doing. The pathway can be a little bit different sometimes because it's things, unlike you guys, you're focused on one sport. I've got a lot of different sports I can do. So there's hopefully more pathways up, and hopefully something will break one of these days, and I'll be able to move onward and upward. But believe me, I don't forget. You got all you guys do for me, just accepting me first of all, and also welcoming me in and making me feel like I'm part of this helps a lot. And it's something I don't forget. It's not often I see people from the past who I got to work with in terms of players, but when I do, it's great to know that that they appreciate what I've been able to do, and also let them know, hey, you were part of this. You helped me get there in a small way, and
Yeah.
it's a great feeling, and I'm hoping someday doing an NHL game to be able to look back and say, yeah, that Worcester Bulls experience was a great stepping stone to get to this point.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we're all looking to keep moving up in our profession and bigger and better things, and just gotta remember all the people from where you were to where you first started to where you are, and it's a great experience throughout the whole way.
Yeah, it definitely is. And speaking of mentioning that, as I said, earlier today, I was on the OHIO podcast, which is also available on YouTube. They're also on X. Just look up the Ohio podcast. You'll find them. There was a post earlier about me. They wanted me to had me on to do a preview of this weekend's regional between Ohio State, Yale, and Minnesota Duluth. With Ohio State going in as the number one team, then the number one seed in the NCAA women's hockey tournament. And I had the opportunity to mention the Worcester Bulls a couple times, as well as the Shooting the Bull podcast. So if you get a chance, go look that up again, either on YouTube or X. Just look up the Ohio podcast. They say it is the OHIO podcast with OHIO in all capital letters, but I just say it that way to make sure you know what to look for in there. Again, you'll find a link to their YouTube channel. The link has been posted, so that podcast is up and available as well for anybody who wants to hear me on there talking about mainly the Ohio State women's hockey team, which has been tremendously successful over the last several years, two national championships in the last 5 seasons, looking to make it 3-6. Last 4 seasons, looking to make it 3-6 this season. It's their turn, actually. Since 2021, Wisconsin and Ohio State have traded the national championship back and forth. In fact, the Buckeyes and the Badgers have played in the last three NCAA finals, and they're at least theoretically on a collision course with Ohio State again being the number one seed, Wisconsin being number two. But again, Ohio State's got a couple steps to go before they get to that point. They'll certainly have a tough opponent, whoever they play on Saturday, either Yale or Minnesota Duluth. A little more familiarity with Minnesota Duluth because they play in the same league, the WCHA, so they played each other. They play each other 4 times a year. Ohio State won all 4 games this year, so looking forward to that again on ESPN Plus, as will be, and TSN Plus, also the Canadian affiliate of Canadian version, I should say, of ESPN. If anybody's watching up in Canada, I'm sure we got to have some Canadian fans. This is about hockey and stuff, so I know if there's anybody up there in Canada, you can watch the NCAA women's hockey tournament on TSN Plus as well, starting Thursday night.
Yeah, we'll have to tune into all of that and watch and listen. I'll put the podcast in here as well as a little
Right.
promo. But like, what advice do you have for people looking to get into play-by-play broadcasting? Like, just like what to expect and what you go through to like, and just any piece of advice to help start their careers.
Well, a couple things I bring up is number one, as I mentioned with the Tim Brando told me, get the reps. It doesn't matter what
Yeah,
level it is, especially if you're in a smaller town area where they might not have a whole lot of media. You go to a local high school and say, I want to do webcasts of your games. You can do just audio, have a laptop, microphone, headset, whatever. If you got somebody who's got a camera, you can set up video as well. But it's a lot. Anybody who's got some tech knowledge, and I'm sure kids who are in high school, in their early 20s,
yeah.
have a lot more technology than I do. But
Oh yeah.
try to get something going, or if there's a company in the area that does that, try to get that as well. I know, as I said, I work with OH Report, which covers a lot of Mid Ohio, based in Mansfield. They also up in Findlay, they have a local sports website, Findlay 45840, which is their zip code up there. They do a lot of high school sports coverage as well. So if there's an area if there's a company already in here doing local high school sports, get on there and see what you can do. Second thing, writing. One of the best pieces of advice I ever heard, John Miller, a longtime baseball play-by-play announcer, was on Sunday Night Baseball with the late Joe Morgan for several years, also still broadcast the San Francisco Giants. He had a very succinct philosophy. Speak good English, give good descriptions. And this is where writing comes in. Writing improves your understanding and use of the language. If you can write well, you can speak well. And that's a big thing. That's a big thing to me. I don't try to get into too much in the way of fancy words, although I'll sometimes mix my sports metaphors and expressions now and then. You probably heard some of the
Yeah.
soccer and football references I've put in there
Just
on
gotta
our
throw
games
it
as
in.
well. Yeah, right. And because I do so much of that, but some of it helps in that way. So yeah, writing is always good, especially if you end up working for a team, a minor pro, like some kind of minor pro team. Sometimes, like we have with Cade Crackus, does our radio broadcast. He also does some writing for the website as well, and that's it's an important skill to try to develop, is the writing. And the third, probably the most important thing, is be yourself, especially if even if you're not on camera. Listeners and viewers can spot phonies. It's that simple. Now, there's just something about, especially on camera, there's something about that camera that exposes a phony. Being yourself is the best thing you could do, especially since, hey, somebody, if somebody were to say to me, I want to be another Keith Kokinda, well, guess what? We already have one. We don't need another one. Be yourself. You're better at that than trying to be me. And
Yeah.
I'm certainly better at being Keith Kokinda than I would be trying to be, say, a Vin Scully, obviously. So that's being yourself it's an old piece of advice in this business, but it's so important because there are some guys that, as I said, they come across as being fake and phony and contrived, and it just does not work. That's one of the great things when you watch college football on Fox Sports with Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt. These guys are authentic. They really love what they're doing. They're good at what they do. Gus Johnson's enthusiasm is infectious, I think. He does a great job at it, and you could tell he really, really enjoys it, what he does, and it comes across that way. I know he's not everybody's cup of tea. You go on social media, and there'll be, if he's trending, there'll be both good and bad stuff on there. But they love what they do. Klatt is terrific as an analyst. Has a sense of humor too. Several years ago, doing an Ohio State game when Chase Young was playing, and the defense was so dominant that season, his senior year. He referred to them as Superman and the Avengers. And of course, that's two different genres of comics. And the people who are comics fans really were up in arms in social media about that because, hey, Superman is DC, the Avengers are Marvel. What the heck is going on here? To his credit, he took it with a great sense of humor and deliberately repeated it the next time he did an Ohio State game just to let them know, hey, it's firmly tongue in cheek, of course, just to let you know, hey, I get it. And
Yeah.
it's again, it's something that, but again, that authenticity comes when that authenticity comes through. It's a big difference because again, it's you can't being somebody else just does not work in this business.
Yeah, authenticity is key, and those are great pieces of advice and a great start for people to get their careers started. And I think that's a great place to wrap this episode up, as just talked about throughout your career and just your learning experiences and everything you've gone through to get to where you are today. So I just want to say thank you again, Keith, for coming on the show, and I appreciate your time, and hopefully we see you a couple more times this year for the Worcester Bulls.
I hope so too. Hopefully, best wishes, a safe trip up to the Niagara region. Play well and stay healthy, all you boys.
Yeah, we absolutely will. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.